Shalom, everybody. It's Brother DL signing out for the Prophets Republic. Let's go. All right. Hallelujah. Welcome, everybody. Brother DL in the house. I got another brother of mine, my good brother, Sheikh Kebab. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Hey, did you make that intro or?
Yeah, big shout out to our sister Connie for the intro.
That's what I thought. I was like, that's a nice intro there. All the special effects. I was going to ask you, what software do you use? Because I use VDSC, which is an awesome.
Yeah, you got a nice little simple intro to your show. I like that.
Yeah, I actually did that on what's it called, Render Forest. I used to have a paid membership, but I don't really do that much, so it's like you could do it for free, and all I do is just crop out the watermark. Okay, so Qur'an.
Yeah, I checked. Yeah, I checked it out. I've checked out a couple of your shows. I liked how sweet and to the point the intro is on your part. So, yeah. Anyway, very very enlightening. Typical Sheikh Kebab. Anyway, I'm gonna give this little slide presentation, and then we'll move on. All right. So everybody, today we're gonna be talking about how the rabbis would judge Surah 4, Ayah 157. These days we have a bunch of Muslims clicking up with Jews and vice versa, Jews clicking up with Muslims against Christians in violation of Surah 5, 82, which says that the biggest enemy of the Muslim is the Jew, but the closest in love and friendship is the Christian, but that's not the way that they act in reality. So we're going to point out one little issue, the Shava Hakirat, which is the 7 interrogations. We're going to apply that to Surah 4, Ayah 157. Let's go. The primary text is Surah 4, Ayah 157, and for their saying, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. In fact, they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but it appeared to them as if they did. Indeed, those who differ about him are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge of it except the following of assumptions. Certainly, they did not kill him. Brother Sheikh Kebab, when you look at that verse, is there anything conspicuously absent from it?
Okay, when I read this verse, knowing the background, so the verse is saying that there's a group of people, and it's assumed to be the Jews, because I think the previous verses say that. So apparently the Jews are boasting that they killed the Messiah, but apparently Allah was a magician and he had some CGI effect, and he made it to appear to the people that somehow, Jesus wasn't crucified. Now, the thing that I found funny is that why would if the Jews were waiting for the Messiah, why would they say or boast that they killed the Messiah that they're waiting for?
Right.
I mean,
That's not absent, that's present.
yeah.
But what we're going to do is we're going to see what the rabbis would focus on if we brought this situation to court. Because remember, this is a historical claim. This is claiming that this happened at one time in history, right? Time is linear, it flows in one direction. So let's check out the rabbis. Let's see what they have to say. According to the Bet Din, rabbinical house of judgment, or the Din Torah, judgment of the law, any testimony that is void of a time frame and a location was suspect and not accepted as reputable. Notice time frame and location, conspicuously absent from that verse and the surrounding context. Let's continue on. Rabbi Adin Ibn Israel Steinschalt states, according to what was called the Seven Interrogations, or Shavah Hakirot, we find that in the judge's examination of witnesses, 7 fundamental questions are asked. 6 relating to the time the event in question took place, and the 7th relating to the place. There are 1. In which 7 sabbatical year cycles of Jubilee cycles did the event take place? 2. In which year of the 7-year cycle did the event take place? 3. In which month? 4. On which day of the month? 5. On which day of the week? 6. At what time of the day? 7. Where did the event take place? Once again, when we read Surah 4, Ayah 157, we don't have a time or a place, do we? You with me there, Brother Sheikh?
I'm hanging in there with you.
Okay. So this is what the rabbis would pay attention if we brought this as evidence. If we enter into a court of law with Surah 4, Ayah 157, this would be the 2 things that they wouldn't see in that testimony. Testimony is unacceptable if the witnesses contradict each other on these matters, or if one of them cannot answer one of these questions. Testimony that does not stipulate the time and place of the act is unacceptable because it is irrefutable. From the Talmud, the Mishnah also documents, Rabbi Abai said, he, the herald, must also say, on such and such a day, on such and such an hour, and in such and such a place, the crime was committed, in case there are some who know to the contrary, so that they can come forward and prove the original witnesses to be false witnesses, having deliberately given false testimony. Tractate Sanhedrin 43a. Judaic scholar Peter Schaffer comments on this passage saying, Rabbi Abai, a Babylonian Amara of the early 4th century, arguing that the Mishnah's vague such and such a crime must be made more precise, exclaimed, the herald should not just mention the crime, but add the day, hour, and location of the crime. So what does all of this mean? The context of Surah 4, Ayah 157 is void of both time and place. We are not given an hour, day, week, month, year, decade, century, etc., or a verifiable geographical location of the event that it supposedly describes. This only means that it does not meet the basic qualifications for providing valid testimony to the event of the crucifixion. However, the four gospels present both. You want to chime in on that, brother?
Well, I'm just going to say that after listening to all of this, man, you could apply this to the whole Quran and just throw it out. Although, don't forget
Yeah,
that
we're just scratching the surface, my brother.
Yeah, but don't forget that there are many verses in the Quran where the writers, let's say it's Allah, says that the verses are clear and that the verses are explained in detail.
That is correct.
But yet, when you and I read the book, we're left with questions that don't have any answers unless we go back to the so-called previous books that they claim is corrupted. So,
right.
Sadly, Muslims need the corrupted books if they're asked any questions, or of course they can always go back to and say, well, it's not important. We don't really need to know that.
Right. Well, the other thing is that this idea that they're buddies now, they try to click up, Muslims try to click up with Jews and Jewish interpretations about things. And, when you actually adjudicate Islam or the Quran in particular by Jewish rules and regulations, the Bet Din, it fails. And I don't know of one Jewish rabbi who does not believe that Jesus died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate.
Right, and this is something that, I was just going to say that this is something that you won't see, whoever these Jews are that are, getting buddies with the Muslims. They're not telling them that if they apply what you just said right here, they would not be buddies. Instead, they would apply what you're doing and say, hey guys, your Quran basically fails, the test of, going to a court and taking the Quran. It would be so easy for me to have the whole Quran thrown out because It's laughable. There's really nothing in there, except the book that says, it's the words of God. Why? Because the book says so. That's like
circular reasoning, just pure circular
like
reasoning.
The bank robber on the stand and saying, "Did you rob the bank?" And he says, "Nope, that's it. You're dismissed. We don't need any evidence. You said it. You didn't do it. We're going to take your word for it. Go ahead. Case is done." Go ahead, brother.
All right, moving right along. Even more, there is another problem for the Quran, as the aforementioned Rabbi Steinschaltz states. In most instances, the testimony of a single witness has no legal standing. Indeed, in certain cases, it is prohibited for him, for example, Muhammad, to testify lest he damage the defendant's reputation. For example, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So Surah 4, Ayah 157 receives no justification even from rabbinical adjudication. So to our Jewish brothers and sisters out there who are always trying to click up with Jews against Christians, for what reason I have no idea, you still remain closest in friendship with Christians, according to Surah 582, and your biggest enemy is still the Jews. If that is true, then why don't you live that way? This is Brother DL concluding my presentation. So we already know that when we're dealing with the Quran, we're dealing with a single witness, right? And Deuteronomy 19:15b tells us that every matter must be established on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Jesus taught the same principle in Matthew chapter 18, and the Apostle Paul taught it in 2 Corinthians 13:1. We don't form as doctrine anything that we can't have a double witness, a multiple witness to. We have the same thing when it comes to the Apostle Paul, right? he wasn't just the only one on the road to Damascus. He had many other people with him. Not only that, as a divine appointment, Jesus appears also to Ananias in the city of Damascus to let him know that he needed to go out to Paul, and he told Paul that a man was going to come to you. So you have a double witness there as far as this guy going into a cave and supposedly getting put in a headlock by an angel named Jabril. There wasn't anybody else in the cave with him to testify to that. So such it is with the crucifixion that we see in Surah 4, Ayah 157. We got one guy making a claim that it only appeared to be Jesus crucified. However, that goes against 4 Old Testament prophets: David, Isaiah, Daniel, Zechariah, Jesus's own teaching and his earthly ministry, the testimony of the 12 apostles, and numerous non-Christian Jewish and Greco-Roman historians.
Now, I will say that
we've already seen what the Jews would do with Surah 4, Ayah 157. They throw it right out of court. You don't mention a time, and you don't mention a place. Not to mention, you got one person testifying to it.
Right.
Go ahead, brother.
Now, I don't have a problem with a single eyewitness, right? Let's say I'm the only eyewitness to a particular crime, right?
Yep.
But in the case of the Quran, this eyewitness is testifying. It's almost like you're testifying about yourself. And this goes back to what I said. That's like putting the bank robber on the stand and asking the bank robber, did you rob the bank? The bank robber is going to say no. Now, if he's an honest person and wants to take the punishment for, be a real man, he will say yes. But why do you think that the defendants rarely ever put the person that's being charged on the stand? Because you can't be a witness to yourself. I could be a witness to a crime that somebody else did, but I can't. And that's what the Quran does. Well, how do you know that the Quran is the words of Allah? Oh, because Allah says so in the Quran. Well, how do I know that that's Allah? Oh, because the Quran says so. And like you said, it's a circular reasoning. You keep chasing your tail and you end up at the same place. It's a book. So if you wrote a book, tomorrow, let's say it's a religious book, and you came up with, you did the same thing that Joseph Smith did, and you come up with your own holy textbook, and you claim something, and the only evidence that you have is your book. Most people would laugh at you, but that's exactly what Muslims do. They want us to believe in a book that they tell us, it's perfect, and that, Allah wrote it, that no man has touched it. But it's like mind-boggling. Okay, so how did the Quran get into a written form? Wasn't it men that wrote the book? Oh, but it's perfect. Well, how do you know? Because they memorized it. Okay, well, here's the thing. In order for you to verify, okay, so if I came up to you, brother DL, and I said, you know what, DL, I memorized all of Hamlet, and you're like, great. Now, how would you verify that when I recite to you Hamlet,
recite it exactly,
that I am reciting exactly what Hamlet says? You would have to have a physical copy to compare it to.
Right.
Otherwise, it's my words against yours. I'm telling you that I memorized it. Okay. Now, back in the days when I was taking computer programming, there was a thing that we used to say: garbage in, garbage out. So if you put garbage in your program, well, guess what? Your results would be garbage. How do I know the Muslims didn't memorize garbage? How could I prove it?
Right.
If I tell you, DL, to tell somebody else something, how is that person supposed to verify that you actually said exactly what I said? He's got to come back to me. Got to come back to me and say, hey, Sheikh, DL told me that you said this. Is that true? Then I'm going to say yes or no. But if I'm no longer in the picture, how can you really verify that? I'm not saying that you're not honest, but how can a person verify what was said if the originator is no longer in the picture to verify that what this other person said is what they told that person to say? And what we have is some guy named Allah supposedly said something to some guy named Jabril, who did a George Floyd on Muhammad, who then went back and told his scribes, and then they eventually wrote it down. That's like Allah, Jabril, Muhammad, and then the person writing down. That's 4 people. And if we go with the standard tradition that Muhammad couldn't read and write, how did Muhammad verify what was written down? I mean, he could have told him, guy, hey, write down that the sky is blue. And the scribe wrote down, hey, he was feeling a little, frisky that day. And he put down that the sky is pink. How would Muhammad know that he wrote down that the sky is pink? Now, I've had Muslims say, oh, he would tell him to recite it. Okay, I could recite back and say, yeah, I wrote down that the sky is blue, but in reality, I wrote down the sky is pink. Muhammad would never know.
Yeah, we already know that he didn't know the difference between something that was written in the Tanakh and something that was written in the Talmud.
Right.
But you make an excellent point. The argument that, hey, well, if you guys got rid of all of the Qur'ans today, we would still have millions of people who haven't memorized, right? So how would we know that what they memorized was correct if we don't have a written document, to verify that what they're saying is correct?
Exactly. So you're basically verifying, memories against each other. Now, my other question would be, which Quran did they memorize? Did they memorize the Hafs, the Warsh, the Duri, the Kelon, the Nafi, the Ibn Kathir, not the Tafsir scholar guy? I mean, which one is it? Because they're not the same, and it's just mind-boggling. We're still hearing Muslims try to tell us, no. They say exactly the same. It's the translation. No, it's the Arabic itself that's different. I mean, and we showed them. There's a beautiful website. It's in Arabic. These guys painstakingly color-coded the differences, so you can't make a mistake. Me personally, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, Islam is going to be in some serious problems, because I'm reading the latest book by Stephen Shoemaker. And he is destroying the whole standard Islamic narration, which, as Dr. Yasikari says, has holes in it.
What's the name of the book?
It's called, I'll send you the link. You can get it from academia. Actually, he gives it to you for free. It's called Creating the Quran.
Creating the Quran. Okay.
Yeah, I think you have an account with academia, don't you?
No.
Okay, well, I'll send you the link, or I can send you the book. It's PDF. But basically, he's looking at the early, because remember, everything that we have about the Quran does not come from the period of Muhammad. It comes at least 100 years into the future. So everything that we have, you have the Hadith, 200 plus years. And I'm only going to be dealing with the Hadiths because the tafsirs really, really deal with the Quran, not so much Muhammad. But you have, where do we learn that supposedly Muhammad, Uthman supposedly, canonized the Quran, and made it, into one standard version, and supposedly burnt all the other ones? Well, and I'm only on page 100. But according to the early sources, and this book is well sourced, and there's also another book, I think it's Robert Holland, how people saw Islam. But basically, there's early sources that basically say that it's basically saying that Bukhari invented that whole thing. Because remember, Bukhari was a Sunni, and most of the stuff that we know about Islam comes from who? The Sunnis. because the Shiites don't believe in Uthman's standardized Quran. They believe that Ali was the one that put the Quran together. But according to early writings, not just from the Islamic sources, but non-Islamic sources like John of Damascus, they're all pointing to that the originator of the canonization of the Quran is Abdul Malik and his viceroy, al-Hijaz, in the late 7th century, early 8th century. So according to what I've read so far, it's Abdul Malik and also al-Hijaz who canonized the Quran and burnt all the other different ones. Not Uthman. They don't even really mention about Abu Bakr compiling the first one. Apparently, apparently there's there were at least 4 codices, because we have to stop calling it the Quran. The Quran only exists with Allah. What we have today is what they call the Mus'haf, or a copy. It's a written version of supposedly the original. But we know that Ubay Ka'b, he had his own Quran, which was read by the people in Syria. We also know that Ibn Masud,
and it had 116 surahs.
Right. Ibn Masud, I believe, is the one that had either 110
111.
or 111. He's from Kufa. Now, there's another guy whose name is Abu Musa al-Ashra. The people in Basra read his Quran, and then there's one more guy, Migdad B. al-Aswad, who was in Hims. I have no clue where Hims is, but somewhere in the Middle East or up there. So we know that there's at least 4, and none of these match the so-called Uthmanic recantation, which doesn't exist. There is no manuscript that we have today that actually goes back to Uthman. Also, Shoemaker brings up the deficiencies of carbon-14, because remember, carbon-14 is only supposed to measure the material, not the ink itself. So let's say you could have an animal scan that was maybe in storage, and it might not have been written for decades or centuries.
Yeah, it can be years older than the ink is.
So carbon-14 is not going to date, let's say I skinned an animal and I put the hide and I stored it, put it away, and 600 AD. But I didn't have anybody write on it until, let's say, 650. So it's been in storage for 50 years. When they carbon date that, it's going to show that this animal, was probably killed about, 600. But that's not when I wrote it. Also, there was one manuscript, and I think it was the Sana, where they had a C14 in like 3 different locations, 3 different labs that did C14, and they all had different date ranges. Now, these things could have been contaminated depending on the area, because remember, all of these come from, like medieval in the Middle East. So it could have been contaminated. But yeah, so that's why they also look at the what's it called? The paleographic, the style of writing and all the different things. Like we know that dots, the diacritical marks didn't exist in the early manuscripts.
Paleography.
Yeah, there's paleography, there's orthographic-y, because later on the Quran's got more sophisticated and it got so they got fancy and they had separations between the chapters. So they can look at that. They can look at the style of writing and the style of script and know that, okay, this particular script was used at this particular time period. This is why I've got the video, the famous one that Muslims like to throw at us, the Birmingham manuscript, which is really only 3 partial surahs, 18, 19, and 20, which now turns out, and I have this professor that it's a palmacet, meaning it had writing underneath, kind of like the sauna, and then writing on the top.
Right.
And the style of writing and how it's written does not match the carbon dating. It's much later. So his book is really good. And then the other one, I'll probably send you both of them, is Robert Hoyland. Now that one, Shoemaker's only about 300 and something pages. So if you got some free time, you could probably read that book in 2 or 3 days. It's a lot of information. I'm trying to find the sources. John Damascus is one of the sources, because I think he was the first Christian polemist who actually works in the Umayyad Caliphate with his father and grandfather. So he would know. And he does not mention anything about a Quran being in existence. Definitely not at the time of, Abu Bakr or Uthman, which is kind of strange. Why in the 8th century people didn't know about a Quran? And my only answer is because there wasn't one. It hadn't been compiled like what we have today. So, and then the other one, that's Hoyland, his is almost 900 pages, and it's how early people saw Islam, and it's, I think between these two and Jay Smith has been doing a lot with Al-Fadi on this, and it's like the whole premise is forget the holes. There's not going to be enough room for holes. It's going to be a sinkhole. This thing is going to blow up, and I'm not sure if there's any surgery that could be done to save it. So it's going to be fun. I say give it another 5 years.
It's all Islam's fault. Unlike Christianity, which grew up in came up in an environment of critical thinking. I mean, a Greco-Roman world, the philosophical mind is inherently skeptic. With no power, for 3 centuries, the church did its fighting theologically, right? Islam has never been under that type of scrutiny until it started moving west. And then the biggest death nail, excuse me, that I believe the seeds of its own destruction were sown when it decided to, universalize its message through social media. And in return, social media just like backfired on it.
Well, I look at it this way. There's I think there's a 3-pronged attack. You got the fact that we now have social media. I mean, we have the internet. Information is at our fingertips, unless you're lazy. We have the fact that we have a lot of ex-Muslims who are have left, who are Arabic speakers and have access to the sources that I have access to the sources, but I can't use them because I don't read Arabic. And let me tell you, for me to translate let's say a 1,000-page Arabic book, which I can do, I'm not making any money, so it's not really worth it for me. And then you have, of course, people like CP, Rob Christian, Adam Seeker, who speak Arabic and who are now looking at all of these Arabic goodies that we don't have access to. And then the third one is they translated a lot of the materials, like the hadiths, like the tafsirs. Not all of them, because, like, for instance, Al-Qurtubi, I think I only have 4 volumes. That's in English by, what's her name, Ashley Bewley. Now, I'm not sure how many volumes.
Somebody finally translated his writings.
Who's writing?
I didn't think any of Qurtubi's writings.
Yeah, it's
English, but,
as far as I know,
a few volumes, and that's good. That's once again.
I have 4 volumes. Yeah, I have 4 volumes.
Make it worse for him.
Yeah, I have 4 volumes. I don't know if she's translated anymore, But I mean, I have all the, hell, I don't even need them. I just go to sunnah.com, but I personally have Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the 6 canonized hadith collections. I have the first biography, well, which is technically the third because the first two versions don't exist. So we have the final sanitized version of Sirat Rasul Allah. So I've got over 1,000 books. You have that guy, that professor, Shady Nazar. I've got his 2 books on the canonization of the Quran. You have people like Gabriel Say Reynolds. I mean, you have all these scholars. The French have been doing a lot of work on it. I can't.
Yeah, I know him.
What's his name? Wayne Lepew, whatever. He was on J. Smith. People like J. Smith, who's really good. Al-Fadi, I think, is doing his master's on. I don't know if it's his master's or his PhD. He's doing it on the Sana manuscript. So I mean, the wealth of information, and it's coming out so quickly, unlike with the Bible, because we didn't have the tools that we have today. But like you said, the Bible is probably the most scrutinized book ever. I mean, it's been, what, 250, 300 years? Now we are applying the same
once the whole
standards.
science
We are applying the same standards to Islam, and it's falling apart.
to the Quran.
Now, I will have to say, reading Shoemakers, a lot of the early scholars, they do push the Sunni narrative. You know, they try to push the Uthman standardized canonization. But let's say if that was true, then why today in 2023 do we still have all these different Arabic Qurans? If he indeed standardized it, and the thing that Shoemaker says is at the time of Uthman, he didn't have the power that Malik had to standardize it. He maybe, if anything, he might have standardized the version that say the Mecca and the Medina, because that would have been his area. But like, you've got the 4 guys that I mentioned. Their Qurans existed and were being used by the believers. You got Syria, you got Kufa, you got Basra, you got Hims. None of these are close to Mecca or Medina. Uthman would not have really had power or the ability and to really. Now Abdul Malik, he had the power to put this together. Him and, like I said, the guy's name is Al-Hijaz. I just found out Aisha had a Quran. I didn't know that.
Her own?
So, yeah, she had her own Quran. I mean, Abu Bakr's Quran supposedly went from Abu Bakr. It went to Umar. Now, here's the other thing that I have been hearing. Umar, all these, the 4 rightly guided caliphs, the Rashidun, it's starting to look like they might also have been fabricated, because outside of Muslim sources, there's no mention of these guys. Why is that? If Islam, and we know according to, again, a lot of stuff goes through Islam, but we know as far as the conquests, when they started conquering all these different empires. But how come none of these people were writing about, Abu Bakr or Umar and so forth? And like I said, why is it that John Damascus doesn't really make any reference to a Quran from Uthman? And he was, I think, in the early 8th century. And there's other people that write about it, even in the late 8th and 9th century. They mention, this Abdul Malik, and then I think his son. I think it went from his father, Walid or something, Walid, then it went to Abdul Malik, then it went to his son. And then all the stuff that we see is really after the Abbasids took power. The use of Quran, the use of Islam, the use of the term Muslim. These are all late 8th century terms that nobody knew about before that. The name Allah. I mean, outside of maybe a pagan god, where in history have we heard of a creator called Allah? If you look at the Jewish sources, it's always Yahweh. So at what point did Yahweh become Allah? Because Yahweh is a personal name. It's a proper noun.
Right. Yeah.
So when did that change? Because the only change that I see it happening is after Islam.
Yeah,
Prophets,
you would have to, you know,
yeah, go ahead.
you would have to understand that if Muhammad did have any understanding of what Yahweh was, he would have used some form of a euphemism. You know, the way in the Aramaic language, you know, you literally have like 3 yods for Yahweh. Like they won't spell it out in the Aramaic, right?
I mean,
Because they're avoiding using the tetragrammaton. They would have something like that to that extent in Arabic if they had an understanding of Yahweh and that you shouldn't use his sacred name.
I mean, another problem that I've talked about for ages, supposedly they had 124,000 prophets. Now, my understanding is that according to Jewish sources, I could be wrong, they had millions of prophets. Okay, whether it's true or not. But here's the thing.
I think it's 20, I think it's, was it 24,000 or 240,000? Something like that.
Well, you're talking about in the Islamic narrative?
Yeah, according to their traditions, there was like
it's supposed to be 124,000.
124,000.
But if you look at the Quran, it only mentions 25 of those. So I guess the other 123,975 didn't matter. But the problem is, out of those 25, there's 2 of them that we can find in the Torah that were never prophets. So in order for you to be a prophet to a group of people, I would say from a historical standpoint, somebody would have had to have mentioned them as being prophets. Wouldn't you agree?
Uh-huh.
We don't see that. I mean, and the only sources that we have, obviously, is the Jewish sources. You know, the Old Testament, the Torah. Nobody claimed that Lot and Ishmael were prophets. And then you got 3 other prophets that I guess they're Arabic prophets: Salih, Shuaib, and Hud. Who the hell are these guys? I mean, to me,
in these lands, the Thamud.
Well, you got Tamud and Ad.
Yeah, the Thamudic script is actually the Nabatean script of the 5th century BC. However, the Quran in Surah 40 makes reference to the Thamud as an example to Pharaoh of what happens to people who defy the God of Moses, right?
Right.
You know, but the Thamud, you know, the oldest script that we have of them is from the 5th century BC. So they definitely weren't a people that lived prior to the time of Moses. Another anachronism, the Ad, you know, this land, and who was their prophet? Salih.
Okay, so you had you had the people of Talmud, which I think the prophet was, well, okay, you had Prophet Hud. Hold on a second, let me pull up my little cheat sheet, because I did this when I had a debate with one of the Muslims. Let me go to my documents. This was my debate with Rocco. I think this is the...
You had a debate with Rocco. Okay.
Yeah, I had 2 debates with Rocco back on Clubhouse. Okay, man, 26. No, that's not it. That's called a copy and paste. Copy and paste all. Okay, there we go. All right, so, and this is all in chapter 26. So you have Noah, right? The people of Ad, which I do believe that Ad and Thamud, we know the locations. So you had Ad, the prophet was Hud. And then Thamud, the prophet was Saleh. And then you have a prophet Shuaib, but it just says the dwellers of the woods. I have no clue what that means. Who's the dwellers of the woods? Where exactly is this located? And this goes back to that little presentation that you did. For a book that claims that it's clear and everything's explained in detail, I have no clue who the dwellers of the woods are. I mean, I know the people of Lot, but again, so you have Lot and Ishmael as prophets that nobody knows outside of the Quran and the Islamic, narration. And then you got 3 of the prophets that nobody knows. You got a guy named Dul Qarnayn. Nobody knows. Who is Dul Qarnayn? And like you said, the location.
The 2-horned one, I believe, right?
Yeah. But who is that? I mean, I know Alexander.
Well, I think the Arabic just means it just means the 2-horned one is what I believe it means in Arabic.
Yeah, but again, who would that be? Because the only person that we ascribe the 2 horns off the top of my head would be Alexander the Great, because you do see depictions of him with like horns, like on his helmet or whatever you call it back then. And we know all about Alexander the Great, and I don't think he would have been a good messenger for Allah.
No, not at all.
That dude, he swung both ways.
Yeah.
And he was a pagan. So since when do pagans become prophets of Allah? And there's nothing. We know about Lot, about his people, and we know about wherever Lot lived, it got destroyed by Allah. But ask a Muslim to just use the Quran. How would you know that Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed by God? If you had no knowledge of, let's say, the Old Testament or religions at all, how would you know that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? Reading the Quran, you'd have no clue. Cain killed Abel. Great. Where's that in the Quran? We know that Adam had sons. We know that one son, I was going to say unalive, but we're on YouTube. But we know one son killed the other son. For what? And which one killed which one? Now, Muslims tell me, it's not important. It's the message behind it. Okay. So it seems that one of the excuses is it's not important. We don't need the names. And a lot of times sometimes it's just like useless to talk to these people because it's almost like they're brain dead. The excuses, that's why I like to debate Muslims like we're 2 attorneys in a courtroom. Would this stand up in a court of law, like you just pointed out? You can't just say, well, it's not important.
Well, they're not. The only thing that they can stick to is their traditions. They're not going to be able to appeal to any reputable historical records that verify these claims that they make. And I just don't understand why red flags don't start going off in their minds. Like, man, we, outside of these traditions that we have, we don't have anything to verify any of this stuff.
And when you verify it with outside sources, it's wrong. It's almost like they don't believe in the historical method. How do we know that? And here's the thing, the Bible is probably the most accurate book that archaeologists and so forth, they use before they go digging up a location. They've already got a pretty good idea where to look for. Why? I mean, how many cities, how many groups of people have been found that corroborate what's in the Bible. We know that these locations exist because we found them.
Right.
No, we can't even find anything from Mecca. It's almost like it's a ghost town until much later on, until like, middle of 8th century. The description between the Quran, and I think Eric did a show on this, the description between the Quran and the Hadiths cannot be Mecca. There's just no way.
Yeah, I believe, as Jay Smith points out, many of these locations seem to be more towards, the northern part of Arabia.
Yeah, in where the Nabateans used to live. Yeah, Petra.
Yeah, the
that area right there.
Nabateans. And as I said, the Nabateans were the ones who first utilized the Thamudic script. And you have all of these stories about Thamud, in the Quran.
Like, I think one of the descriptions is olive trees. When has there been olive trees in Mecca?
Right.
And it talks about like vegetation and like agriculture. What agriculture in Mecca?
Yeah, things that are not indigenous to that landmass.
I mean, there's not enough water in that area to have to grow much of anything. And olive trees, we know where olive trees pretty much come from. So it's like,
it's almost, if you think about Muhammad and Islam, it's almost like they tried to like create a superhero, right? Who was the leader of a religion, and they developed all of these fictive historical locations, kind of like Star Wars or something, right? And kind of like presented it as a religion, that was true, and and borrowing certain aspects and stuff from other Shemitic cultures in their religions and stuff like that. Just mixed it all together and came up with Islam. And it's like they just don't want to stop believing it's kind of like a kid who just doesn't want to stop believing in Santa Claus.
Right. Here's my theory. And I kind of agree with Dr. Bill Warner. I see Islam being established as a political system, by the caliphs. Let's say the Abbasids. Because like I said, we don't really have anything outside of the Abbasid time period, right? They started, we know that they started conquering all these different lands, the Persian Empire, the Byzantine Empire. And they just, within I'd say 100 years, I don't think I've seen an empire that grew as fast as the Islamic Empire. And I think as they were putting together the Quran and all of this stuff, they realized, okay, we got all this power now. And they looked at Christianity, which at that time was the powerhouse, the Romans. And they realized, well, okay, the Romans, they're Christian. Christianity had a founder. Who is that founder? Jesus Christ. They looked at the Jews. Now, granted, the Jews are not, they've never really been a powerhouse. There's not that many of them. But they look at them and they say, okay, well, Judaism has a founder, Moses. And they had to come up and give the political side a religious side. So it wouldn't look like it's all, because basically I call Islam communism with religion thrown in. So they had to create this Muhammad, because I think even in the earlier times, nobody really mentions a prophet named Muhammad. So they invented this guy, Muhammad, and then they redacted back to the time period that supposedly, he lived. Now, in the Quran, Muhammad has no miracles. Why is it that all of a sudden now we find all these miracles? We have books of the miracles of Muhammad. Because why? They realize Moses had miracles, Jesus had miracles. Well, hell, we need to give some miracles to our prophet. We got to give him some, we got to give him some credibility, some credit.
Yeah, so they found themselves having they found themselves having to compete with the greatness of Christ, man.
Yeah. I mean, he
Because
can't even.
as a historical figure, he's untouchable. And for you to claim that Muhammad is the final and greatest prophet, we have to find something greater about him than we do about Jesus. And so I agree with you on that. That's how those stories developed, man. They were, it was a shame to claim that he was the greatest of all the prophets, but did the least of magnificent things, right? You know what
And
I'm
also,
saying?
if you notice, like some of the scholars say, you'll notice as we go down the timeline, people that lived hundreds of years into the future seem to know more details than the people who lived during that time period. How does that happen? Don't you think that the people that were actually there would have more details than somebody
Yeah.
200 years down the road who wasn't there? I mean, how are you going to? So it's like it's embellishment, and I guess a lot of it is because it's oral tradition. I think one of the things that Stephen Shoemaker says that the people in that area, they were very illiterate. Not just Muhammad, but just the whole area. So a lot of it was tradition, and I believe he also has a chapter. I haven't gotten to it, where he uses science to prove that memory, you cannot rely on your memory, which is basically
Wow.
what uh, what
And
Muslims tell you.
this is
Oh,
a
it's right.
what kind? Who was this again? Was he an Islamic scholar?
No, he's a scholar, but I think his work is in the Islamic side.
But is he a Muslim though?
No, he's not.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not even
I
sure
would
he's a Christian either.
I would definitely have to disagree with him about memory.
Now my understanding, I haven't got to that point yet, is that he gives you the studies on the memory, where he
Does he?
says our
Okay.
memory has a way, our memory has a way to embellish as time goes by. Like you'll remember things that didn't exactly happen. Like I could remember stuff when I was 5 years old. Don't ask me how. That I'm pretty sure didn't happen. But I think it did. But so anyway, I'll send you the book and you can take a look at it. Like I said, he deals
Well,
with the part of
that's yeah.
memorization.
No problem. I just I do believe that there's some validity to oral transmission, and but there's reasons why they were written down. Um, there's a reason why the prophets wrote the message down,
Right.
and that's
Well,
because the oral tradition was not the rule, right? It was the rule was the written text. When Jesus comes on the scene, he didn't say, "Have you heard recited?" He says, "Have you not read?" Right?
right.
He was always appealing to a written text, which was the standard. The fact that you could paraphrase scripture and stuff like that is fine, because if people knew the written, this goes back to what you were talking about earlier. If you say if all the Qur'ans of the world were gone, right? I do believe that Muslims who read the Qur'an on a regular basis could paraphrase, right? You'd find a million Muslims who would say, yeah, that's what Surat al-Baqarah actually said, right? Would it be word for word what a written text would be? Most likely not. But as they make a distinction between ipsissima verba and ipsissima vox. Ipsissima verba means, the very words. Ipsissima vox means the voice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
somebody may not know word for word what you said when they told me about it, but when I heard it, I would hear the ipsissima vox. Hey, that sounds like something my brother Juan would say, right?
Right.
sounds like him, right? The voice is there. And so but it's been a while since I studied some oral traditions, but yeah, I do believe memory serves people well. But it's a little different when we're talking about prophets, because if you remember Jeremiah in chapter 36, God tells him to tell Baruch ben Neriah, his scribe, to write down all the words that I have spoken to you, starting from the 13th year of Josiah to now. Well, if you look at the timeline, that's 22 years. So 20, which is actually the same length of time of Muhammad's whole ministry. Jeremiah's was like twice as long, almost 50 years, right? So for 22 years, Jeremiah never wrote down any of the revelations that God revealed to him. So he had to have been just reciting them, right?
Right.
Now that's in the text itself. So I do believe that either memory serves you well, or God reiterated to him what he originally told him. But I do believe prophets did, they didn't just write things down immediately when they got them. I think they had their ministries, and then, either they or their disciples, wrote the stuff down. Amos, he mentions 2 years after the earthquake, showing that he had his ministry, and then he most likely wrote down his revelations 2 years after he received them. So you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, they weren't walking around with a scribe attached to their hips.
Right.
And they didn't have they didn't have a voice recorder like today. You can have one that fits in the palm of your hand, and you can record 300 hours on one SD card. But the thing is that I do understand, based on my experience, as I've gotten older, my memory is not as good as it used to be. I can't remember things as quickly. And sometimes I'll have a thought, okay, I'm going to go into the room to get something.
Okay, but what do you do when you get older? You accommodate,
what do I do when I get older?
Yeah, you start writing stuff down. It's just you're going to start keeping notes. More notes than you did when you were in your 20s or 30s, right? So, it's just a natural process. I got to write this stuff down.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, sometimes, I don't know if it's happened to you, but it definitely happens to me, where, okay, I'm going to go into the room and do something or get something. I walk into the room and I don't know what the heck I was going to get. And then 15 minutes later, it pops into my head. Like sometimes something that comes up, okay, and let's say I need to go to Google to search for something. I'm on my computer and I'm like, dang it, what the hell was I supposed to search for?
Right.
And then they'll pop up because I didn't write it down. But here's the thing. If the oral tradition was actually 100% true, as they say, why do we find all these earlier disagreements or discrepancies? Like, for instance, we have 4 different Qur'ans, and I know at least 2 of these guys are from the 4 that Muhammad says, if you're going to learn the Quran, learn from these 4. I know Ubay Ka'b and Ibn Masud are 2 of them. I don't know about the other 2. I'd have to look at it, but these might be the 4. So why do we see all these different disagreements? Because apparently not everybody had memorized it, or what they had memorized clearly. How can you have one guy whose Quran has 116 chapters, another guy whose Quran has 110? One Quran, the chapters are different. You have hadiths themselves from Aisha and others that say, well, we used to recall such and such surah, and it was such and such size, but Abu Bakr only has, I think it's 73. I think it's surah 33. What happened to the other 200 verses? I'm not even pointing out the goat ate the stony and the suckling, supposedly, chapters. But there's no consistency.
And just look at the honesty of the Ummah. I mean, to actually document that passes the criterion of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Man, we literally have 200 verses missing from a surah.
And that's not even these other sources. Like I said, you've got 4 guys that had 4 different versions of, they each had their own Quran that didn't agree with each other. So you're trying to
Right.
tell me each one, and now these guys, these guys lived with Muhammad. They heard Muhammad. If he existed, like I said, everything's pointing out there was no Muhammad. That Muhammad was really, it started off as a title, the praiseworthy one. And then it morphed into a name, Prophet Muhammad. But if you look at these guys who supposedly lived with Muhammad, and they can't get it right, because why do you have 4 different versions? Now, Muslims will tell you that the Quran came in 7 different ways, but where is that in the Quran? Oh man, last night, the Rockettes were on TikTok, and I was listening to them, and Rocco was reading this verse. Of course, he reads the Rashid Khalifa version. I don't even call it a translation. It's like a personal interpretation. And he's talking about how I think it's chapter 1037 says that the Quran is infallible. And I'm like, dude, I may not know how to read Arabic, but I know how to read Arabic. And I'm like, there is nothing in the Arabic that says the Quran is infallible. Now, his translation says it's infallible, but if you look at the Arabic, it doesn't say it's infallible. Then I think he also brought up chapter 2, verse 2, and tried to imply that it's talking about the Quran, because chapter 2, verse 2, I think it's the verse that says, and I did a video on it. Yeah, chapter 2, verse 2 says, the Arabic, because I'm reading it word for word. It says that is the book, no doubt in it, a guidance for the God conscious. So that's not the Quran that is being referred to. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Yeah.
Now, a lot of the translations have put, instead of the word that, and I have looked at the Arabic, and I've looked at the different times that particular word is used on corpusquran.com, and guess what? They all say that. What they've done is they change it, and the translators will say, this is the book, trying to imply it's the Quran. Now, I think Rashid Khalifa actually says that this is the Quran, that it's infallible. Instead of saying that there's no doubt about it, it says it's infallible. But if you look at the Arabic, it's talking about that is the book. That is referring to a different book. And the Quran was not a book until after Muhammad supposedly died. So what I do is I go in and I look at the
place with that.
I go and I look at the Arabic word for word. Now, did you know that Prophet Google?
Are you using Corpus Quran?
I use Corpus Quran, and I have access to a website that gives me I'll give you the link. It gives me a crap load of dictionaries, as long as you can. I use Corpus Quran to get the trilateral roots. And then I go to this website. Let me pull it up, and I'll put it in the private chat. Then I put in the trilateral root, and then I look for the words and see what it says. Here we go. Pull it out. It's a big. Where are you? Over here. Let me go private chat. I use this website. It's a big thing. It's got Lane's lexicon. It's got a vast number of dictionaries and lexicons. So I'll go to that. And worst comes to worst, I'll go to people like Brother Paul and a couple other people that I know that are Arabic speakers. I've been making quite a few friends on TikTok that are Arabic speakers, and they've always offered to help me. So So when you look at all of this stuff, it's like how can Rocco sit there with a straight face, if I could see his face, and just lie to you and read something and say you don't have to know the Arabic? Well, you kind of do. Oh, and another thing that was funny, they were talking about how Quran gets embryology correct, and Joy, she was giving her female view, and she was telling this guy, yeah, man, I am so sure that a baby is created from a blood clot. Have you ever seen a miscarriage? And Rocco, who supposedly I think is going to school or has some kind of job that deals with the medical field, you got these two people telling people that, yes, you're a blood clot. I told Joy, which you probably won't get, I don't think she realizes it's Dr. Drew, but I told Joy, can you find me? And I had this discussion with Rocco. I said, because he tries to throw around, he showed me his little, I think he's going to some vocational school, whatever he's doing, something with x-rays. And he's trying to tell me, because he's doing that he knows more about embryology than me. And I'm trying to tell him, can you show me any textbook that mentions a blood clot in the creation of a baby? Because I haven't seen one. Heck, if you look at my YouTube channel, I actually did a video where all I did was pull up a PDF version of I think it was Keith Moore's 10th edition of the Human Development. And the reason I like PDFs is you can do searches. And I did searches for certain keywords like blood and the clot and the clinging clot and the leech. And I couldn't find any. Well, except for the little section that talks about the Quranic embryology. But I'm like, where can you find, and I've taken courses of biology in high school and college, where can you show me a textbook that says at any stage of development, you're a blood clot or a blood clot is involved? I mean, and they're telling these people like it's a God-given fact that, yeah, you're created from a blood clot. I mean, Joy was serious. I got to start recording these people, because now Rocco probably threatened to sue me like he did last time. I will give you permission to record
But once again, that's just them saving face, man. I mean, they're saving face, and because they have to know that if they actually study to see whether or not that claim is true, it's gonna show up as being false.
I mean, and the thing that I don't like about TikTok is that the live streams are gone after you end the live stream. It's not like we're in Clubhouse. If you had the replays on, it's safe. So it's public. There's no such thing, at least that I can tell, as far as a private, unless you do a private room. But typically when you do a room on Clubhouse and you put the replays on, it's safe for everybody to, listen to it that wasn't there. So it's as far as I'm concerned, it's public realm. But with TikTok, unless you're recording, which is another use that I find for OBS, I can record, let's say a debate or a discussion on TikTok, and not just the audio, but I can also capture the chat and everything else. But it's like, dude, how can you with a straight face lie to people, and as a woman think that a miscarriage proves that you're created from a blood clot because you look like a clot of blood? Seriously?
Right. Yeah.
And where do we learn that the sperm from a male or the egg of a female is a blood clot? Because the Quran, chapter 96:2 says you're created from this clot. Jalalain says it's a small quantity of congealed blood. Ibn Kathir says it's a clinging clot. Now, I have no clue what a clinging clot is. Is that like, Tarzan swinging? Is that Tarzan swinging at the end of the rope? And then they say, oh, it clings into the uterus. No. Have you ever seen the thing? The egg it implants itself. It's almost like it digs a hole into the uterus and buries itself. That's not swinging or clinging. It's not like it's got some Velcro, two-way Velcro where it Velcros itself into the uterus. No, it buries itself and then starts to grow from there. And the only time that you could say it's clinging is once the umbilical cord is established. Then, okay, you got an umbilical cord. But, I mean, seriously, how can you... I mean, I don't understand. How can you lie? How can you pretend to lie? And just because you're a female, oh yeah, I'm 100% sure that, yeah, you're created from a blood clot. Because this particular individual asked him, so what do you think about the verse that says you're created from a blood clot? And Joy and Rocco stepped right up and said, yeah, 100% true. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Joy's like, yeah, I can verify it as a woman. You've ever seen a miscarriage? And I'm thinking to myself, really? A miscarriage is a blood clot? Oh man, it's like, I didn't have OBS opened up, but otherwise I would have recorded. But I'm like, seriously, and it's not just Rocco and Joy and can't remember what the other sister's name is, Ray. It's all the Muslims that I've had a discussion, and they tell me, yeah, you're created from a blood clot. What's wrong with that? And I'm like, what do you mean? What's wrong with that? Yeah, it's true. The Quran says it. Yeah, okay, but can you show me a textbook? Oh, we don't care about textbooks. Or they'll pull up National Institute of Health.gov, which God only knows why these stupid people put an article in there about the Quran and the embryology. It's just a paper from some Muslim in Saudi Arabia who's trying to prove that the Quran gets embryology correct. And they'll tell you, I don't know if it was no side or if it was calamology that told me, yeah, you see, back then they didn't have a microscope, but if you look at the embryo, like, I don't know, 7 days or 17 days under the microscope, it looks like a blood clot. I'm like, okay, but where does the Quran says you're created from something that looks like a blood clot? The Quran says you're created from a clot. Not that you will look like a clot at a certain time. Muhammad says that you're semen in the womb of the woman. And I'm thinking, man, was this guy using a cannon? How did that semen get into the womb? So you're semen in the womb of your mother for 40 days. After 40 days, that semen turns into a blood clot for another 40 days. And then you're a lump of flesh for another 40 days. So at the 120 days, you and I just look like a lump of flesh.
Right.
Dude,
yeah.
All you got to do is go to Prophet Google and type in embryo development. 120 days. Assume there's 30 days in a month. That's 4 months. Look at the human embryo at 4 months and tell me, does that look like a lump of flesh? Or does that look like a pretty well-formed, fetus? How can the Quran say that the term of gestation is 6 months? I think I did a video on that too. At 6 months, if you're born at 6 months, unless you're born at 6 months today, and the chances of you surviving are not that great, you're not going to survive. Could you imagine in the 7th century, a woman has a premature baby at 6 months? That baby's not going to live. Didn't Allah know that? Because that's what the Quran says. The period from pregnancy till the time you're weaned is 30 months. The period of weaning is 24 months. You do a little bit of math, 30 minus 24, that gives you 6 months of being pregnant. And then you have the baby. Hello. Even Islam.Q&A says, oh, you see, it's talking about the minimum and the maximum. I'm like, where does the Quran say minimum and maximum? And again, you cannot survive at 6 months unless you have the neonatal, the intensive care unit for babies. And even that, the medical page that I have, and I think I showed it on my video, even that, you have like 59% of survival. And if you do survive, you're going to have a lot of problems as you're growing up because your body wasn't developed enough. So, I mean, the information is out there. 6 months pregnancy, okay. I mean, I guess I would be okay with the 24 months of, breastfeeding. Got no problem with that. I'd be a baby. I wouldn't even know what the hell's going on anyway. But I don't know if I'd want a 2-year-old chomping on my, man, that's got to hurt.
Right.
But I mean, it's right there in front of you. If I wasn't a Christian, I could never be a Muslim. Just using my God-given brain cells and read that stuff and say, yeah, man, this is the true religion. So what's wrong with you and me, DL? Why aren't we Muslim? I mean,
man, I just know too much about the previous scriptures. That's all I can say.
But again,
thank God
the way
for
I
his
look
word,
at it,
right?
if I didn't know anything about the previous scriptures and I just read the Quran and I was using my brain, which still functions, and I'm reading that stuff, I'd be like, I mean, and just knowing what I know from going to, 12 years of high school and 4 years of college, I'd be like, and like I said, most of us take biology at least in high school. So we kind of do learn how, how a baby is made. And I'm like, and then you go to 86.7, which is kind of funny because it just says, there's a water that comes out from behind your back, from between your backbone and your ribs. What the hell does that even mean? What water comes out of the backbone and the ribs? Whose ribs? Whose backbone? Is it one person? Is it more than two persons involved? And then what's funny is when you read the tafsirs, oh man, you really get a good laugh. Because the tafsir scholar says women have semen that cut out of their breast area. Really? I mean, I've dated quite a bit in my younger days and I was married. I don't recall getting a squirt in my face. And that's not how a baby is created. You're not created from two sexual fluids. So, I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Did we have anybody in the chat? No, I guess it was just you and me, buddy. Oh, we did have a.
We have
like
zero.
We had a guy named Ace.
Zero
AC.
views.
You can't have zero views.
Yeah, I think he was coming in here trying to make a case for what was he saying?
The only thing I see him saying is what's left after preservation of scientific miracles. Is he a Muslim? Because I'm kind of reading that both ways. Like, is he saying that?
I think he's not on their side. I think what he's saying is once you get rid of these so-called scientific miracles, what do you have left?
All right. Now here's something that I really laugh at. Okay, the term scientific miracles. Okay, I mean, if that's not an oxymoron, I don't know what is. Since when does science deal?
Yeah.
I mean, since when does
if it's scientific, how can it be miraculous, right?
Right. So what's this science deal with miracles? The whole reason we call it a miracle is because science can't explain it. So when Muslims tell me, "Oh, the scientific miracles in the Quran," I'm like, you do understand science does not deal with the unexplained or miracles.
Right.
You have to be able to produce it in order to verify it. So I again, and what really is mind-boggling is we have people that you and I would consider to be probably smarter than us put together who become Muslim. How does that happen? What happened? Did they get dumb? How can you be in the scientific field, the medical field, any kind of field that requires, having a highly intellectual capacity, and then you read the Quran and you decide to be a Muslim, a doctor. How can you be a westernized, learned doctor like no side, like calamology? They're doctors. Maybe it's the fact they live in California. Who knows? And still say, yeah, I'm a doctor. I was Western trained, but I believe the Quran gets embryology right. I'd be like, dude, let me know what you practice, because I don't want you anywhere near me. Especially if you think, women have breasticles. So I guess you and women need to go to have their, that.
Easy,
right.
Easy.
Yeah. Okay, lady, I need you to turn to the right and cough. I was like, I don't know, man. I just don't understand. You doing any? I want to go live on TikTok. I've done quite a bit of new.
I just got off the suspension yesterday.
Oh man, what did you do to get suspended?
They claimed it was hate speech again.
So you did a live? Because I haven't seen you do a live in a while.
I know, because I got suspended.
How long did you get suspended this time?
Until the 14th, which was yesterday. So I went on there today, joined somebody's room, and
yeah, I saw you there, because I was on
that's right. Yeah, Jedediah was in there, and
first time I've seen her. Now, did you get a week? Did you get 2 weeks? Because I haven't seen you do it in a while.
I've gotten suspended 4 times, and each time it was for a week.
Oh, okay. Well, see, you got lucky. I got suspended for a week. The second time that I did a live stream, I got permanently suspended for hate speech.
Yeah, well, that's what they got me for 4 times, hate speech.
No, but they permanently, I can't do a live in that account. I don't even know what that account was anymore.
Oh, so you had to start another account.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I started, Sheikh Kebab. Well, no, actually, I started the one that's called, you can't make this up, because my original one got permanently suspended. And then my second account got suspended for a week. That's when I created this one. So this is the Sheikh Kebab is actually my third account. But I only got 1 week, and then the next one was a permanent suspension. I can't. I can use the account, but I can't go on the live, and I can't do lives. Now, here's the funny thing. I used to be able to go live from my PC. Now I can't anymore. It says I need to have 10,000 followers. I'm like, what the? I ain't got no 10,000 followers. Now, how does that make sense, DL? I only need 1,000 to go live on the TikTok app, right? But if I want to go live on the PC version, I need 10,000. Does that make sense? Why am I being punished for using the PC version?
What's the difference,
Yeah,
if they're
that's what I told them. And I got a can.
It shouldn't be hard to get 10,000. I mean, do you know how many? When I came off a suspension yesterday, I went into TikTok, and man, I must have. It seemed like about 50 people. Follow back, right? So it shouldn't be too hard to get to about 10,000.
No, listen. For me to get 1,000, I had to pay for those damn subscribers for all 3 accounts. Okay. Yeah. Listen, I've been on TikTok.
Every time I get on there, and and I'm on there for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, there's 4 or 5 people who started following me. So
I mean, I've been on here longer than you have, and I bought 1,000. I've only got 451 followers that I didn't pay for.
Talking about TikTok?
Yeah, this account right now that I have.
Let me see how many I got.
I got 1,451. 1,000 I paid for. And I'll tell you what, my YouTube channel has been, I think this is now my 3rd year. I don't even have 700 subscribers. And I've got 300 and something videos that I've done. You know, I got my 10-month series that I did with Paul and Eric and a few other people. For some strange reason, they don't like me.
Who's that?
YouTube, TikTok, the Christians, I got no clue. I mean, you would think that one thing that I did notice that when I got on YouTube, compared to these channels where the Christians pretend that they're looking into Islam. Do you know that guy? He used to be called Open-Minded Christian, and then after we busted him, he became Open-Minded Thinker. Dude, that guy's got, I think, what, 200,000 people now? And I have 672, I think. And all he does is post these little Muslim videos. And it's all Muslims, right? I mean, God bless God Logic. That dude is blowing up like it's going out of style. So I'm not God Logic. I lose a TikTok account, I have to pay for it to get to the 1,000. Otherwise, I'd never join a live stream.
Yeah, I
Now,
noticed that. I noticed that they actually show you how to do it. You
yeah.
can, they have YouTube channels where they'll show you how to get those subscribers. So
Yeah, well, the first account I had Tippy Bear. You know Tippy Bear, right?
right.
Well, she helped me get my first account. Now, 100% of the people they were all bots. So within about 2 weeks, I went from 1,000 followers to like 250. But because I had reached the 1,000 threshold, I didn't lose the ability to do live streams, until I got permanently suspended. But the second account, the third account, I had to pay, cost me $25 to get 1,000 followers. Now these followers are pretty much, I'd say 80% of them are actual real accounts, because my drop didn't go down that much. I lost a couple hundreds. But I mean, and I don't really put videos on here. The things that you see, they're just memes that I make. And then when I upload it to TikTok, it adds the music and the little movement. Because
Right.
when I did have videos, Muslims would report me and they would get taken down. So yeah, I mean, I don't attract people. Maybe it's my voice. Maybe I'm a little rough. I mean, I have no clue.
No,
So if I was to lose, I mean, if I was to lose these two,
you're straightforward, man. Straightforward.
I mean, if
Coming
I
with
was
the
to lose
facts.
these two accounts, you probably wouldn't see me. Well, you might see me, but I wouldn't be able to do a live stream. But because like I said, dude, that's 3 accounts that the first one I didn't, like I said, the first one I didn't have to pay. The second one, I couldn't get a hold of Tippy. So I'm like, the hell. So I found a website that was like $15 for 1,000. But those dirty suckers, because it wasn't a company in the US, they charged my credit card as a cash advance, which cost me $10. So basically it cost me $25. So I did that for me, and I did that for my buddy Little Wolf. And then this one, I found another company that actually does it in American dollars, and they don't charge you, an extra fee. But it was still, it's about $15, $20 for 1,000. Now the prices have gone up since I got this, but I'm like, I mean, God Logic loses a channel or an account, he picks it up right away. Now, the one thing that I do like is you can make some money on this platform.
TikTok.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just got a whopping 14 cents from being on a live today.
Yeah, I made. I think that's about what I got one day.
Now, I'll tell you what. When I debated Central Dawa, I actually made $50-something for about an hour and a half. That was damn pretty good.
Wow.
I mean,
And
I don't make that much. I
how
haven't
did they
made that
send it
much
to
per
you?
hour, period.
How do they send it to you?
I think you can give them like the information and then you could transfer to like your PayPal. But if you look at your settings, now I think you have to do it on the app. It'll tell you how much money you have. Now, usually what I've been doing is if I send people roses or gifts, they'll just deduct, like to send one rose will cost you 2 pennies. You know, depending on what you're sending, it could cost you, 2 coins or whatever. But yeah, I think you can. Now, I haven't given the Chinese Communist Party my financial information, so it's still in my balance. But
Right.
I've got like $59. That's in the kitty. So if I made $59, and that was just from an hour, I don't even think it was an hour and a half with debating Central Dawa. Could you imagine how much money God Logic is making?
Yeah, he's making up some pretty good money.
He's making, and that's just from TikTok. That's not counting the money that he's making on YouTube. I mean, God bless his soul, man. But he doesn't have to work anymore. Because, like I said, if I made $50-something, because I think it's all based on how many gifts people send you, and I don't know what percentage. Because, like I said, a rose costs you 2 pennies. You might get 30 cents of that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see. I did record my debate with Central Dow because it tells you how much gifts you've gotten. I've seen some of these guys get 20,000. Now I don't know if that's $20,000 worth of gifts or whatever, but it'll tell you 1,000. Like today, I got the live stream that I was on with Travis. Travis got over 1,000 and something. I had 39. So I guess what 14 out of that. It looks like about a third. But I'm like, if you're popular, like God Logic's got what almost 100,000 people. So just imagine if every time he goes live, he's got almost 1,000 people.
You're talking about 100,000 on YouTube?
No, not on YouTube. I'm talking about on TikTok.
Yeah, on YouTube, he's close to 100,000.
Yeah, he's getting close to it. Let me see, God Logic.
Now, God Logic, I was like at 90 something.
I think God Logic has at least 2 accounts. He's got number 2 and number 3. I guess number 1 was.
Yeah, he's got God Logic Global Media or something like that. But I know his original account is
he's got another one because usually he does his live on God Logic number 2. He's got about just shy of 20,000 followers. Got 64,000 likes. Man, I only got like 200 and something. And then what's God Logic number 3? I think that's a new account. God Logic number 3. And you said he had another one? And there's some.
Yeah,
God
so his original one. Yeah, he should have like 90 something thousand. I think I read.
Yeah, God Logic number 3, which is a new account. He's got 2,400. I'm sorry, 2,400. Got 2,429. I think that's his backup.
Yeah, well, he's been grounding a while. Yeah, you just got to constantly keep putting out material and like Anthony Rogers only has what 5,000.
Let me see. Inspiring philosophy. Inspiring philosophy. He's on here. I like him. Oh, he's got 182,000. So they really like this guy, but I don't think he does really debates, but he does like.
Well, there's, he's doing philosophy, so he's getting more than just, the Christians coming in. So.
That was weird.
Wow, what happened there?
That kicked me out.
Oh, okay. Well,
I thought you had ended the live stream.
nah, we got 20 more minutes, 19 more minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So I was saying, if you get some pretty good content, you can, you can make some decent money. And I like TikTok because there's no requirement that I know of. Versus on YouTube, you've got to meet the 1,000. And then I opened up a channel to do shorts because that was the latest rave. Shorts, you can make a lot of money. And then I find out you got to have 10 million views in 90 days. That's the requirement for you to start getting paid. I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm going to make
on YouTube.
10. Yeah, on YouTube Shorts. Like, if you have a channel that's strictly for shorts, which I have one that's strictly for shorts, in order for you to be monetized, you got to have 10 million views in 90 days. I mean, I don't even have 100,000. I don't even think I have. Let me see my political parody channel has more views than my DSQ. Let me see.
So you got 2 channels.
Actually, I've got 5. All right, so my channel, my main channel, which is the dissecting the Qur'an, or DSQ. Now this channel goes from 2014, but I didn't do anything with it. I've had 47,000 views, and pretty much since September of 2020 is when I kind of started uploading stuff. I think my first video had anything to do with Islam was the little snippet of the debate between Muhammad Hijab and David Wood, where he pretty much shows us that Allah prays. And that's it. Now let me pull up my other one, which is called I'll give you the link to it. Switch account. Yeah, Babyface Daily Rants. I only have 177 subscribers. And that one, it's political. Let me go over here. Babyface. View your channel.
So which one of the channels has the most subscribers?
The DQS. Now, but as far as views, that's the Babyface Daily Rants. I'll give you the link to that one. It's political stuff, because I also like politics. So that one there, that one I have. Now this is a relatively new account. YouTube Studio, and I haven't done anything for like maybe the last 6 months. And I got analytics. I got 177 followers. Oh, look, I got 49 views in the last 28 days. Lifetime. Yeah, this is a little bit over a year. I've got almost just over 96,000 views, 427 watch hours. So I need 10 million views. You think I'm close?
To get monetized?
Yeah. I mean, I got 96,000 views. I need 10 million. Well, I already failed because it's supposed to be 10 million views in 90 days. Ain't no way I'm going to get.
Why the 90 days?
I don't know. That was their rules. Now, in the regular channel, which is, you know, the regular format, more than 1 minute videos, it's 1,000 followers and 4,000 hours. Now, I got the hours. I'm at just under 5,000 hours. But I'm only at 674. No, I think I've got more. Let me see. Do I have more? No. Yeah. So I have 674 subscribers, 47,000 views, and 4.8 thousand hours. So I qualify. I just don't have the subscribers. So I need 226 more. No, I'm sorry, 326 more to hit that magical 1,000. And I can't seem to get it. That's why I started doing little shorts, because I typically didn't do shorts on this particular platform. So I started doing little shorts, like you see. I uploaded one today with 2 minutes, you know, Muslims stop using Isaiah. I did the one for 25 minutes, to pray or not to pray. No name John before John the Baptist. And I usually average about 100 views. So.
And how long are those shorts normally?
Well, a short has to be under 1 minute.
And you did the John the Baptist in 1 minute? Less than 1 minute?
No. John the Baptist would not be considered a short. John the Baptist was, no, actually, John the Baptist was 11 minutes. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. 3 minutes and 5 seconds. So it's not a short. Yeah, a short has to be like 59 seconds. I mean, I've had videos where when I edited, it said 60 seconds. When I uploaded, it said 61, and it wouldn't take it as a, because the shorts are those little vertical, kind of like on TikTok.
Right.
And anything over the 1 minute is the regular format, the portrait. Even though the video is, because all my videos are still in the shorts version, but yeah, so shorts are under 1 minute, and then anything else, just consider it a regular video. And like I said, I have how many videos do I have now? Shoots, I got a lot of videos on this one. I think I have 319 videos. Over the last couple years. I mean, I post them on my Facebook, the debate groups, but I don't debate, so I just post little videos there. And but I'll tell you, with the political one, the most views I got in 1 hour was 5,000 views. And that's
not
that
bad.
number one happens to be the bald eagle taking the crap on the head of our president. Yeah, so that but I haven't done anything on that channel either because I came back. Everybody told me go to TikTok, TikTok. You'll make money. I'm like, okay, but you know, now if I could make $50 every day, that wouldn't be bad, DL. Could you imagine?
Yeah, that would be good.
Of course, I can't find Muslims to debate, so how am I going to make money? But if I could do, hell, if I could do $50 a week, I'd be happy. That's an extra $200.
You got to advertise, man.
Yeah, but I think, outside of the debate with Central Dawa, man, 2 cents, 5 cents, 7 cents. Today I made 14 cents. And like I said, I think people have to give you gifts. So if you're because I've been on live streams before where I've been there for like, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, and I got zero. Comes back and says, you are in zero. And I'm like, okay. So I think it all depends on, how much gifts you get. So let's say I had 39. I think I got 39 roses, and I know a rose is 2 cents. And I made 14 cents. Travis had, I think, 1.5 thousand. So he probably made some, well.
Travis has his own YouTube channel.
No. On TikTok, he was on the same live stream I was on.
Oh, okay.
But he got 1. I think he got over 1,000 gifts. However that works. So let's see. I'm just going to do some rough numbers. All right. So let's say I had 39, whatever, roses or whatever the gifts are. And I know they're 2 pennies a piece, so times 2. So that's 78 cents. I got paid 14 cents, so 14 divided by 78. So that's about 18% of the payments. Now Travis had 1,000 times 2 times 0.18. $360? Damn. No way. $78. If that's right, oh my God, man. I don't know. Maybe I have to show my face.
Now, those are the gifts that you see when.
Yeah, they got all sorts of different gifts. All right, so 39 times 2, because I know a rose costs you 2 pennies because I've sent a couple of them. So I had 39 gifts. Now, I'm just assuming because not all of them are roses. You can. Some of those things cost like $30, $40 to send to somebody, like a universe or the line that goes across your screens. But I'm just basing it on 2 pennies per rose, so that's 78. And then I got 14 cents. So 14 cents, divide that by 78. That's 18%. So if Travis made the same thing, Travis had 1,000. And let's say each one of those 1,000 was 2 cents. Well, I know he definitely didn't make 14 cents. That's for sure. Yeah. So, DL, you got to become popular, have a lot of subscribers or followers, and then just go live quite a bit or join a lot of lives. Now, sometimes I try to join lives and nobody lets me up. So I don't know. Because I'm not, not popular. They don't like the shake kebab.
Yeah, that might be something that bothers them a little bit.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I don't think I'll be able to change this name because apparently it's telling me if I change it, I'll lose my verification in my badges, which I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. So yeah. So you just got to become popular.
Yeah.
Now my little videos are, like I said, those are not really videos. Some of them get some good traction. I got one that has almost 1,000 views. Like for instance, today I'm one of the things that I want to do is when I go live, I'm going to use the People's Court versus the Quran. The charge: Quran is not from Allah but men.
Right.
And I had one that's called Proof Quran is from Allah and not Men Week. I was planning to go on this week, do a live every day. So it was going to be kind of like the People's Court. So that got 293 views. The most that I've gotten is, I finally hit 1,000. Allah is not the God of Moses. That one got 1,000. Quran failed embryology is number 2 with 937 views. And
How long
everybody
have you
else
had it
is,
out?
huh?
How long have you had the video out?
I don't know if it tells me. Well, I got those within like 2 days. Let me see if it tells me. Oh, that. Okay, so 10/17. Okay, so 10/17 is when I uploaded the embryology one. The one that got 1,000, that got suspended, and then I got it back. That one was on 10/17 also. Yeah. And let me see the one for 905. That was also on 10/17. I mean, looks like I was kind of busy on that day, 10/17. Yeah. So I think I uploaded like 5 or 6 video. I don't know, whatever these things are called, on the same day. So, and then I think the lowest one is I got the one about my dog talking. That only got 57 views. I thought that one would take off. That was on a live stream with the little deer, and my dog got a little, she wanted to get involved in the discussion. So
Maybe we should go live on TikTok.
I mean, if you can keep from getting, getting banned, and you can do, let's say, now God Logic when he goes live, oh my God, man, he's got to not work because the dude goes like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. Now I can actually do that now because I work from the house, but still, man, I don't want to be doing that crap for 5, 6 hours, especially since.
And what do you do from the house?
The same thing that I used to do. I'm doing the accounting for the company that I've been with for 3 years, but I kind of quit because they pissed me off. And then they hired me on a contracting thing. Plus, I need a little bit less stress because my last year there, man, with all the stress, my stomach got totally messed up. I'm still messed up. So now I do, I don't know, 15 hours a week. I just basically do their bank recs. I just finished doing the workman's comp audit for them. And then I work with the gal that kind of took over my job. She's in the office. And to be honest with you, I have not been into the office for like a month. There hasn't been a reason for me to go in. So I input the bills. I don't cut the checks, but sometimes I put the checks ready to cut, and then either my boss or the other gal, they'll print the checks. I basically keep an eye on the money. And the deal was that, so I get paid $30 an hour. Anything after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's time and a half.
Not bad.
And just to do the bank recs and the credit card recs, I charge $1 $1,000. So even if I did nothing, the minimum that I would make would be $1,000. I do the payroll every other Friday, but unfortunately, there's no money for payroll. Oh man, the construction company is so broke. They owe vendors almost $1 million. That was part of my stress, dealing with people calling, "Where's my money?" Emailing me, "Where's my money?" And I didn't have an answer. Short of saying, "Hey, listen, guys, we don't have any money." I would tell them, "Hey, I'm working on it. I'm working on it." 3 months later, "Hey, where's our check?" "I'm working on it." So all that just really got to me. And in the last 2 years, I didn't get a raise. So I was like, you know what? So they pissed me off and I quit. Well, actually, the reason I quit was I found out they had an ad for my position. Because these people are not too bright. Because I get emails from Indeed and what do you call it? Career Builder. So this was on a Wednesday night. I'm looking at my email because believe it or not, I still have an AOL email account. And I'm looking at it and pops up Indeed and ZipRecruiter. And I see the name of the company. I'm like, what the? So I look at it and it's a full-time job and they were paying like $14,000 more than I was making. I was like, okay. So that was Wednesday. I went to work on Thursday. I picked up what little stuff I had in the office, acted like everything was okay. On Friday morning, I took a screenshot of the ads. I sent an email to my 2 bosses. And I said, well, since you got an ad out for my position, I consider this as your termination. Therefore, I don't feel like I need to come in. And that was it. And man, let me tell you, both the bosses called, the other guy called. They're like, "Oh man, we were trying to help."
Who said the same thing happened to her, man. She was, she saw an ad for her job.
Yeah. And then, of course, after
they do some pretty shady things.
So for about 2 weeks,
we're after 2 hours, so it's time.
Oh, you can end the live and we can still talk.
Okay.
It's just that it's
not
gonna be on YouTube.
All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up. The 1 or 2 people that did show. It's Brother DL signing off for the Prophet's Republic. Thanks to my brother Sheikh Kebab.